Hello, welcome to Roussel Reads. I'm Deja, and today we are going to do the end of the year book tag. Here I am with another book tag, which I am very surprised about because, like I said in my last tag video, I don't really do a lot of these, but I really like the questions of this one. And I saw this one on Angela's Literature Science Alliance, which of course I will link down below. But this was actually created by Ariel Bassett, who is one of the OG booktubers. So this tag has been around for the longest, and I realized that I have never done this tag before. And I think that it's a good tag to do as we're like going into the end of the year. And so I was like, let me just do it this year and we'll see how it goes. So this tag is actually pretty short. There are only 6 prompts, and definitely happy about that because sometimes these prompts get a little bit too hard for me to answer. And even with like some of these, I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to answer these. But without further ado, let's get into this tag. So the first question says, are there any books you started that you want to finish by the end of the year? The first book that I want to talk about is The Best of All Possible Worlds, and technically I did DNF this. I think I marked it as DNF on my story graph, but the more I was thinking about it, the more I just felt like this is one that I do want to go back to because at the time that I was reading this, I was gearing up to move and I was trying to speed through it because it was due at the library and I wasn't gonna be able to use that library anymore. So I was like trying to rush through it, but I feel like because I was in a rush to read it, like I was not in the right headspace to actually appreciate the story for what it was. Because honestly, like it is a very big like cultural exploration of like different cultures, and in the mix of that there is a love story happening, and I was really finding myself like immersed in the world, and there were like a lot of things happening that I was enjoying. But like I said, like I don't think it was just the right time and space for me to actually read that. So I do want to go back to that one. The next one in this one is actually Kimoni Legacy Initiation by Omari Richards. This one I definitely started and I have every intention of going back to. I kept going back and forth on whether or not I was going to like complete this book or not because on one hand I really did love being in this book. Like the descriptions and just the world building is very like in depth, and the characters are very like in depth as well, and it's just a very big like epic fantasy, and I really appreciated it for that. Like I found myself really pulled with some of the characters, and I really liked the cultural influence in a lot of it. But I think for this one, it was just taking me a little too long to really be invested. It really is a character driven story, and I feel like I needed just a little bit more external plot because it was just like a lot of like slow building up to certain points, and it was just going a little too slow for me. And I think some of the scenes was just a little too wordy for me as well. But I do want to go back to this because I do like being in the world and I do want to see where the book leaves off so I can actually go into the second book. The next prompt says, do you have an autumnal book to transition to the end of the year? For this, I would say kind of. I'm trying not to really like stick to like certain books, but I do want to read maybe even like one out of the 3 books I'm about to mention just to transition me into that. And I feel like part of me has already transitioned into like the fall season, but here are just a few that I think could be also good transitions. So the first one that I have is Witchful Thinking, which I heard great things about, so I definitely want to get into that in like my witchy vibe because I've just been in the mood for like witches and vampires. So yeah, I definitely think that this will be a great transition. I also have Year of the Witching, which also fits into that witchy vibe. And I'm telling myself that this is the year I'm finally going to read Alexis Henderson because I think I've put Year of the Witching on my TBR for like the last 3 years and I still have not read it. So I need to finally get to that one. I think that would be a great fall transition. And then the last one that I have for this one is a new release that just got released maybe like a week ago at this point, and this is Soucouyant, I believe is how you pronounce it. And this is actually a Caribbean vampire story, and I'm so excited. It's a gothic romance, and the vibes that I'm getting is like a dowry of blood, and I'm really hopeful for it. Like, I think I might read this one fairly soon. The next prompt says, is there a new release you're still waiting for? And for this one, I am going to do The Monger by Zaid Hassan. This is by an indie fantasy author that I follow on Instagram. Definitely a very cool person, and I'm just very intrigued with this story. It's going to be a space fantasy, and I have not read a lot of those, so that in and of itself has really piqued my interest for it. But also, like, I kind of like not necessarily like really know the author, but like I definitely have author friends that know him, and I'm just wanting to support as well. So the next prompt, which I think is definitely the hardest prompt, is what 3 books do you want to read before the end of the year? And like Angela said, I don't know about just 3 books, because as soon as I put these 3 books on this list, I just know I'm not going to read them. But I'm trying to be strategic, and that these are a few books that I mentioned in previous videos. So I'm very hopeful that I will definitely get to them. But who knows, honestly, with this mood reading that I have. So the first one that I have is The Hero of Ages, which is the last book in the Mistborn Era 1 series. And this one I mentioned in my series, like TBR, that I want to get to fairly soon. And yeah, I'm just very hopeful. But I was looking at that book and I was like, this book is big. Like, oh my gosh, I have a lot of like chunky fantasies that I'm trying to get into. And I was like, this is just another one. So I'm very hopeful I will get to it before the end of the year, because I do want to close out that series before like 3 years go by. But yeah, I have that one as my first one. The next book that I have for this prompt is Their Eyes Were Watching God, and for some reason this does also give me autumnal vibes. Maybe it's the cover. And this is one that I do want to get to, especially before the end of the year, because a lot of people say that this represents Black womanhood, Black girlhood very well. And I think that this is the classic by Zora Neale Hurston that I really enjoy, because a few of her other books I have not really enjoyed. But like I said, when I added this to my 12 books to read in 2024, I think that that was because those other books that I read by her have been more like plays and like stuff like that. So this is actually a novel, so I'm excited to dive into that. And the last book that I have for this is Kaikeyi, which is a book that I also listed on my 12 books to read for 2024. So definitely hoping to get that. And I guess this also gives me the fall vibes just because of the orange cover. So hoping to get to all 3 of those, but yeah, I'm just very hopeful. Just very hopeful. The next prompt says, is there a book that you think could shock you and become a new favorite? Honestly, I have no idea. I have been doing like my 5-star predictions, and I think that there's a few maybe that could be 5 stars. So that would be like The Principle of Moment, or The Obelisk Gate, or The Binding. And I definitely think that one of those could probably be 5 stars, but if I'm predicting that it's 5 stars, is that going to be a shock to me? I'm not exactly sure. So I don't really know how to answer this question. I'm hopeful I will get another 5 star, because I've only had 2, which is better than last year, but still only 2 out of like the 60 or so books that I've read so far. So yeah, I have no idea. And the last prompt says, have you started making plans for 2025? And I will say yes and no. In terms of video content, I have not, but I do have a few ideas just on like the books that I want to read, challenges and stuff that I want to do, in terms of really trying to just be disciplined with actually reading books that I own, because my library borrows have been out of control lately, and I need to get a handle on that. So I've kind of been thinking about it, but also just not into like the heavy planning yet. But that wraps up the end of this video. I really hope that you have enjoyed it. Please let me know how the end of your year is starting to look. Is it going to be more chill? Is it going to be hectic? Like, I honestly, I don't know where the end of the year is going to take us, but I would definitely love to know how your reading is going to go. But if you don't want to do that, you could also just leave an exclamation point emoji or something, because the end of the year is almost here and that's kind of freaking me out. But again, I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.